Sissy.
Because I call you Sissy.
I call you Sissy.
And you call me Sissy. So we're going to just kind of like do food recipes. I think the concept is we're going to do like food recipes, and we're going to do kind of like the same basic dish and say how we do it, but then we're going to put our own spins on it and so forth. So I like this. I like spending time with you too.
Yeah, this is cool. And then we'll plate it and see how similar or different they are. Something I noticed is how we're very similar, but then again, we're very different. Like your kitchen is like clear and stuff. My kitchen has stuff everywhere. Yours is all counters are clear.
Yeah, I don't like to work in, you know that about me though. Like I don't like to work in clutter. Even like when I'm cooking, I wash my dishes as we go. Where our mother would like throws everything in the sink, and then at the end of the, she's in there fishing out celery and paper towels and putting the dishes in the dishwasher.
Yeah, I clean as I go too, but I have like stuff on the walls and stuff on the counters.
Well, you've been in your place a little bit longer than I've been in mine, so I mean it's kind of just
okay. I see some things.
There's almost always towels like on the counter, almost always towels like or hanging around my neck, which is what we got going on. So when we talked about this concept, and I think we both agreed, so we've got a couple different ideas of foods that we're going to make, but I think the very first one that we're going to do together has to be the family meal, the Magee family traditional, when you get together or your comfort or whatever, it's like everybody makes it. Everybody has their own variation of it. Some people use different ingredients, but we have it. What are we making today?
Hamburger gravy.
You almost said boogie. I saw that. I heard it.
I was trying to
that's what you call it. Yeah.
Hamburger gravy, fried potatoes and onions, and a vegetable.
Yep. And a vegetable. That's what. Now I think we grew up basically on the fried potatoes and onions, because let's be honest, I know people out there that don't like onions. And let me just put this straight out here. If you're one of those people that doesn't like your food to touch, this one ain't for you. Tune in next time.
This is definitely not one of those.
All kinds of touching.
Yeah.
But like we have some of the Magees don't necessarily use fried potatoes and onions. Some I've heard, some maybe do over mashed potatoes or over rice. Or some of them just do like toast or biscuits, kind of like, like a biscuits and gravy kind of thing.
Right.
So when we were growing up, do you remember what people that like our friends used to say, like when it'd be like hamburger gravy night and they'd come over because they didn't like what their parents were cooking or whatever. Do you remember like?
And they get to our house, what are you having? Oh, hamburger gravy.
What's that? It looks like oatmeal.
Yeah.
It's sausage gravy, like sausage gravy that you'd put over biscuits, or sausage, sausage gravy, or just regular biscuits and gravy with some hamburger added. Yes. So anyway, we're going to do for the Magees hamburger gravy, fried potatoes, and then whatever vegetable, and those can vary as well. And again, I've got my own kind of way that I do it. You've got your way. I'm not going to go outside of tradition, but I'm just going to add a few, some things that I like, kind of kick it up here, or, whatever. And I'm sure you do too. Right. So are you ready to do this? It's our first one. So we're going to record ourselves cooking in our own kitchens, and then we'll come back here and we'll show each other what we did and kind of get that, our own our own spins on the same food recipe.
Okay.
All right, you ready? All right, so I'll see you on the other side.
See you soon.
Have fun. I've got some surprises coming up.
Oh, yeah, me too. Okay, the potatoes are sizzling here. The ground beef is getting brown. This is making me have memories being at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and it was the one thing he really took care in preparing. It was a special way that he did it, and over time I kind of lost that way of doing it and just kind of put my own spin on it. But it's basically the same. It's a very easy recipe. It's pretty quick. Basic browning the meat, mixing it all up. I'll be back.
All right, so here we are. I have all my ingredients to make the traditional Magee family hamburger gravy, fried potatoes and onions. And the vegetable we usually do, I switch off between, I like peas and I like corn. I like the petite peas because they keep their crunch, and they do get in the gravy unless you keep everything separate, and I'm not that person. So we've got petite peas frozen. I'm going to toss them into cook on low. I've got my flour. I'm going to get my milk. I've got the Wagyu beef, and this is one of the things that I kind of trade up. Traditionally, it's made with ground beef, and you can do lean, not so lean, whatever you want to use. I often use bison. I like to trade up the actual beef that I'm using. So I've got I had this in the refrigerator. I'm just going to use this Wagyu beef for the burger portion of it. I've got a couple potatoes. I'm going to do half of this onion. I'm going to chop these up, and I'm going to meet you over here by the stovetop, and we'll get started.
Okay. You can cook the meat. It can still have some pink in it because you're going to be simmering it with the flour, and when you put the milk in, it's going to simmer for a while. So it's okay if it's a little pink. You want to drain the grease off. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn the potatoes. They're starting to get a little brown on one side, and I'll do that.
I've got some oil going into this pan. And as many different pans as I use, when I'm making fried potatoes and hamburger gravy, I'm always pulling out the cast iron. Always. It makes it the best. All right, so we've got our oil in there. I'm just going to drop the potatoes and onions. And as far as seasoning goes, not sure if you can see this or not, I've got about a tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and some black pepper. I'm just going to toss this in here like this. And I'm also going to throw in a little, I use Himalayan sea salt. You can use whatever kind of salt you want to salt them. You're just going to salt them to taste. We're just going to let these sit a little bit and we want them crispy on the bottom, and then we can start flipping them. All right, so that's pretty much done. We're just going to let those sit for a little bit. We're going to get to the hamburger gravy. This is probably one of the easiest dishes I make. But again, it depends, you can do variations depending on what seasonings you use and what beef you use. So I'm just going to put the Wagyu in the pan. And of course I have my petite peas simmering over here. We're just going to let that go. I'm going to wash my hands.
I drained the grease, put the pan back on medium heat. I hope you can see. I'm using cast iron for the potatoes. Alright, just give them a stir and let the other ones get brown on that side. Okay, so you got the ground beef in the pot. I have about 3 tablespoons of flour, all-purpose flour. With the heat on, sprinkle the flour over, and you want to cook it for a little bit with the flour. You don't want to have a raw flour taste in the hamburger gravy. So And then here's one of my secret ingredients that I don't know if my sister uses or not. We both said we had one. But I have just some beef broth. I put 2 teaspoons in here for 1 pound. And it just gives it more of a beefy flavor. And honestly, I have another surprise also, but that'll be at the end. So I just put the beef broth in here. That's my shot glass measuring device. And we're going to just let this flour cook on here a little bit. Keep stirring it. Let it cook just a little. The potatoes are still cooking, getting brown. I'm using frozen peas, so I'm just gonna put them in a bowl and throw them in the microwave, and then I'll meet you back here.
Okay, so the ground beef is just about all browned. You want to make sure that everything gets nice and brown. The good thing about this is there's not a lot of fat. There's not a lot of juice. If you use a beef that gives you like a lot of drippings, you're going to want to go ahead and take some of that off, only because you're adding the flour and you don't want it to get too pasty. But I like this particular, the Wagyu, because it's got a lot of flavor. It's got that marbling. It's got a lot of flavor that will really, once it absorbs that flour and the milk to make the gravy, that flavor still comes through. So this is ready now. I am just going to get a pot holder and put it on because that's hot. And I'm going to add my flour. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I'm going to add my flour, and you're just adding maybe 2 tablespoons to start. Just because, again, you want it to kind of absorb. Now, you can take the meat out if you want to. Again, this is like making sausage gravy. So if you make sausage gravy or biscuits and gravy, it's kind of the same concept. You're just basically making a roux. But you want the flour to kind of absorb into that. It pulls into the meat. And then when you add the milk, it just makes a really tasty, tasty gravy. So I'm going to let that kind of absorb in a little bit and figure out if I need to add some more flour. And then we'll just add milk to it. It sounds like our potatoes are over here popping and smacking and cooking. So these are getting nice and brown. Everything's absorbed. Not sure if you can see that. I'm going to go ahead and add a milk. Now, just add a little bit. The thing about these types of making like these types of cream gravies is that oftentimes, it's very difficult to gauge the amount of milk. It really is based on several different factors, the type of meat that you're using, the amount of flour that you're using, and so forth. So I always add a little bit at a time, just kind of mix it around, make sure the meat's mixed because it's got all that flour on it. And then we'll be adding more, but I'm just going to wait and see how well this thickens up. In the meantime, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper because that's what we do. However, I like to use a more coarse salt for the gravy because, again, it can take it. Got some salt, and when I'm making white gravies, chicken gravy, sausage gravy, just regular gravy, I like to use white ground pepper. And it does change the flavor of the dish, but I like the way it looks, and I like the way that the white pepper tastes. So we're just going to add some white pepper in there as well. And just mix it around and let that start thickening up a little bit. Now I'm going to go over here and flip these taters. I like them kind of burnedy on the end.
Okay, the flour has browned a little bit on the meat. And at this point, you got to have some milk. You're probably going to use 3-4 cups of milk. So you want to stir it. I like to pour a little bit in, maybe 1.5 cups worth. Turn the heat down to medium low, and stir it. You want to get the milk in there to thicken, make gravy. stir it a little bit. At this point, you want to put in some pepper. And some salt. Gotta have salt and pepper. You don't need too much salt because the bouillon, the beef bouillon, has a lot of salt in it. Okay. And just keep stirring this. It's thick now, kind of super thick. So you want to put more milk in. Leave the heat like medium lowish. Just keep stirring it. You're going to stir it for, I don't know, it could take 15 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes. You want to just keep stirring it until you get it to the desired consistency. I like mine, well, not too thick and not too runny. The potatoes, I don't want you to see the potatoes. I put the lid on them to cook them a little bit, but they are nice and brown. Even some are a little bit burnt in places. I like it like that. So I turned the heat down a little bit. I put the lid on and just let them cook until they are tender. And then I have another little surprise going here, a little topper for the hamburger gravy that it's just a little extra. I'm gonna saute some mushrooms and put them on top. Some people don't like mushrooms. I didn't used to, but I do now. So I'm just going to saute some mushrooms for the final chopping and finish cooking this. You don't want it to really boil, just kind of simmer, and it will get thicker the more you stir it. So just keep stirring and adding milk until you get your desired consistency and the flour has cooked off of the meat.
So we are getting really close. The good thing about this gravy is that if you've added too much milk, you can add a little bit more flour. It'll stiffen it up a little bit. It'll make it a little bit thicker. And on the flip side of that, if you want it a little bit more loose after it sits for a little bit, just add a little bit more milk, stir it together, and it will loosen things up again. Usually when you do leftovers, I do that. I add a little bit of milk and kind of loosen it up a little bit. But this looks really good. It's bubbling. I'm going to turn this heat off. This cast iron is going to retain some of that heat. So this is done. I'm just waiting right now for the peas and for the potatoes to be done. And I'm wondering how Sissy's doing over there.
Okay. Just want to show you the progress. The hamburger gravy is just about done. It just needs to stay on the heat for a little bit longer. It thickens up as it sits. Once you turn it off, it's going to continue to thicken. And you might need to add a little more milk depending on how you like it.
All right, Sissy, it's time for the final reveal. I'm looking at your dish and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Yours
looks good too.
Yeah. So tell me what you got there and what's in it. Time to reveal.
I got the dang it. Got the hamburger gravy on top of the fried potatoes because that's how I roll.
Right.
And my lemon pepper peas.
Lemon pepper peas. Ooh.
Yes, ma'am.
See, I didn't do anything to my peas. I let them speak for themselves. Lemon pepper peas sounds yum.
It gives it a little bit of a zing.
You got that zing. Okay. So, what kind of beef did you use in your hamburger gravy?
Just regular ground beef.
Okay.
Did you put any secret ingredient in your hamburger gravy?
Well, I use Wagyu beef just because sometimes I use bison I like a stronger beef because by the time you put the flour and all that in it, you still want to have some flavor. So I did that, and then just 2 heaping tablespoons and maybe like a quarter of flour, about 2 cups of milk when it was all said and done. And then I use, for the gravy, I like to use like a coarse salt, and I like to use white pepper. So it changes the flavor. White ground pepper changes the flavor of the gravy just a little bit, but I've got plenty of black pepper. I use sea salt, Himalayan red pink sea salt. Yes. And then a little bit of onion powder, garlic powder on my potatoes and onions. So you've got a couple of different peppers going on there because I like it spicy. Got to have it spicy. So I plated. I too like you. Yeah. I like the burger gravy on the potatoes. But for those people who are like, I can't have my food touched, and we know who you are. Yeah. So you got your potatoes, you've got your gravy over here, you got your peas over here. So this will satisfy anybody who. But this, truth be told, and then at the end, before this you can start, you just mix everything up, right? So
I put onion and salt and pepper in my potatoes. But I have a little surprise to just be a little extra with my hamburger gravy.
Yeah.
And I have sauteed mushrooms. And you can just take a little dollop of the sauteed mushrooms.
Okay.
And you just plop. Can you see it?
I can see them. They look fabulous.
Plop them.
Yeah. See, I'm not a mushroom person, but those look really, really good.
It does look delicious. It is delicious. It's just a little something extra out of the traditional sense.
Absolutely. So I think at this point in the game, I think we should throw the gauntlet out there to any other Magees that might want to be encouraged to make the family traditional supper.
Yeah. Bring it. Yeah.
Bring it on. Let us see it. Take a picture. Show us what you got.
Yes, please.